I have a lot of thoughts on this Michael Oher story. Okay, so if you're just catching up, and look, we're still kind of summer-ish, right? Summer-ish. Some people's kids have started school. Some don't start school till the end of the month. Some till next month. Some people are still going on vacation. You know, all these different things taking place. So I respect that some people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Michael Oher was the subject of The Blind Side. You guys remember The Blind Side? It was a book. Michael Lewis wrote that book. And then it was a movie, and a really good one. Sandra Bullock and Tim McGraw were in the movie. And the story of Michael Oher was, here was a kid whose mom, drug problem, on the streets of Memphis, and this family fell, out of the goodness of their heart, fell in love with him, took him in, made him one of their own, took him to football practice, helped teach him how to play football, helped change his life forever. He went to a private school where he became a quality student. Then he went to Ole Miss, where the father had actually played basketball. And the story was that he was adopted. They adopted him. And then he went to Ole Miss and then became a star left tackle, drafted in the first round in the NFL. That was an amazing story. The Kurt Warner story of personal perseverance is close, but this one feels even better, right? Because, how many times you've seen a kid down his luck and you're like, I wish I could help this kid, and somebody did. And he found this one sport that his mental makeup and body fit and became a star and is a millionaire 10 times over because of it. But what does that Paul Harvey used to say? There's more to the story. Why is that? Paul Harvey's a dated reference, right? You don't know who Paul Harvey is, Jason?
No, I do. I don't know if
the
most
rest
people
of the
know
story,
who that is.
huh?
Yeah. I don't know if most people know Paul
Cope,
Harvey.
do you know who Paul Harvey is?
No idea.
He does not host the Family Feud.
Ha!
No.
By the way, I ran the Paul Harvey back when I first started in radio.
I would say, Nick, it's like Lord of the Flies, right? Like, you don't have to remember everything from Lord of the Flies, but you should probably know about the conch and about Lord of the Flies. Paul Harvey, predating Howard Stern, was probably the most famous radio voice in the country. Am I close? What do you think?
News-wise.
Yeah, he was on news stations.
Yes.
And he had an incredible career, but at the end, probably the last 20 years, he would tell these stories, on news station where it was sponsored. And now the rest of the story.
That was a short one. There was a 15-minute version that he did as well every day.
Right. So, and there's actually a restaurant. I got to give a shout out to it. I think it's called, let me look it up before I screw it up. There's a restaurant in Scottsdale that I just want to make sure I get the restaurant correctly. But they purchased the rights to play all of those stories in the bathroom.
Wow.
Yes, it's freaking amazing.
Second Story Restaurant?
Yes, Second Story. So, and I actually know the owner and had dinner there twice Super Bowl week this year. And you walk in and then you hear Paul Harvey's tell the 15-minute stories. They're amazing. Anyway, how did I get to Paul Harvey? Oh, the rest of the story.
Right.
So, they're incredible. Who owns the rights to those, like, on podcasts? They exist. Somebody's got to have those on podcasts, right? I don't know. They're amazing. So the rest of the story, apparently, we got the first, salvo in Michael Oher suing his adopted parents. They never adopted him. They have his conservativeship, which the only reason we know what a conservativeship is because of Britney Spears, right? But the details of it that we got yesterday, well, they came out and Michael Oher's accusing the Tuohy family of profiting to the tune of millions off of The Blind Side and off of his name, image, and likeness that they can control and they can sell because they possesses conservatorship. Well, earlier today, the dad had some comments, and then the son was on, I think it was Barstool, and they had some comments, and both of them basically said, like, look, the kids were actually, they weren't paid millions of dollars. They paid $14,000, as was Michael, and they didn't get anything on the back end of the movie. And he wasn't adopted, but he wasn't adopted because he was 18, and the only reason that he couldn't be adopted was because he was 18, and the reason they had to move towards adoption or conservatorship is otherwise he couldn't go to and he couldn't be recruited by Ole Miss, which I don't know the rule that they're citing at the time because there is pre-existing relationship rule. I don't know exactly why they said that, but I do know that there is a certain it's different in the handling of a recruit when you have conservatorship or when you're the guardian or when you're the parent, as opposed to if you're just an alum. And remember, the dad is an alum. So this is the rest of the story. I think the danger in it is this. The danger in all this stuff is that we react to the initial plaintiff's claims. And look, if we go back, I don't know what Brett Favre knew. Right? But it stands to reason that his side of the story feels kind of believable. Right? Here's a guy who knows everybody in politics in Mississippi. He knows everybody. He's just simply trying to raise money. All he's trying to do is raise money for the facilities at Ole Miss. And what are you doing? You pick up the phone, you call, I'm Brett Favre. What can we do? How can I raise some money? He didn't, there doesn't appear to be any outward knowledge that money, it was not like he goes like, hey, can we use those welfare funds? Now, if he knew they were welfare funds, well then, by all means, throw away the key. Bury him underneath the jail. I'm okay with that. That's evil. But we don't know that. Anybody who's ever raised money, what do? You call rich, influential people. That's how business works. Whether you're trying to raise money for your business or tries to raise money for school or whatever, and hey, what can you do? Oh, you guys got a grant? It's for schools? Can we move some of it over here? I'm not saying Brett Favre is totally in the right, but I also know that the way it originally read and felt when the accusations came out, like, wow, that makes him look like the worst human being on earth. The same thing with the Tuohys. Like, damn, they're just Michael Oher's their piggy bank. You know? So what's the update? The update is the family is like, we didn't get any money off it. Michael Oher has never been comfortable talking about it and stands to reason that this is what he feels like's happened. And I'm sure there's plenty of people around him like, dude, do you know that movie made $300 million? How much did you make? $14,000. Excuse me? You should be. Jim Rome makes more from Space Jam than Michael Oher does from the movie that's about his life. Right? Wasn't that the running joke that he'd go back every time Space Jam was on? He'd go to the
yes.
go to the mailbox, and there'd be a check for 50 cents in there or something.
Yep.
That's the rest of the story.
But what you're saying is like the one thing that I keep thinking about. The more you talk about the rush to judgment, you could say this has been going on for a long time, but it just seems in recent years that there is a rush to judgment because of this. Remember what we talked about in recent weeks about the political value of victimhood. Somebody's getting screwed, so they're going to try to profit it, and everybody on Twitter is going to jump on the bandwagon. Everyone yesterday was jumping on the Michael Oher bandwagon without knowing the facts of the case and just playing on the plaintiff's side of this thing. Remember the Buffalo Bills rookie punter a year ago? The details from the plaintiff came out, and they were horrific. There was a gang rape involved, and this punter was very much involved in this, and it was horrible. And the Bills, who are a company made the rush to judgment and fired the kid. Everything comes out a year later, and he had nothing to do with it. And now, if I'm not mistaken, he's still without a job. I think he may have tried out for the Ravens or something. But that's like a perfect example of a rush to judgment after hearing one side of the case. And this is a company, the NFL and the Buffalo Bills, and I don't think they've even given the kid an apology letter or anything.
Well, I would also say that as much as I agree with you, I don't know if it's the NFL that we have to, or the Bills that we have to criticize as much as, can you imagine what the public outcry would have been had you kept him?
So siding on caution, overly siding on caution.
Yeah, I mean, I look, the commissioner's exempt list is out there for a reason, right? That's where you put Ray Rice, where
baseball just put Wander Franco on some kind of list.
Right.
See how this plays out.
Right. So that probably would have been the proper course of action. But again, remember, like we are, and there's a lot of good from whether it's Me Too or whether, because there's some creepy dudes out there, right? There's a lot of people doing a lot of things they shouldn't have been doing, in order to get women, right? But there does have to be enough time to allow both sides of the story to be told, and then, figure it out. But not necessarily with this situation, right? This is not one. There's no. It's just a let it play out. This is what I said yesterday when it came out, wasn't it? Which is like, before I go crazy and talk about the story and talk about the Tuohys like they're the devil incarnate, can I hear their side of the story first? Yes, John.
It's kind of hard to believe that. Well, maybe it isn't hard to believe, but that if somebody would not know that the difference of them being adopted or not being adopted, and whether or not the family wouldn't let we're adopting you, or hey, we can't adopt you, we're going to put you in a concern. Those seem like valid points that should have been going around in a conversation with everybody, right? That seems like something to be left out.
Well, that part
right?
is there's a good disconnect there, because Sean Tuohy, who's the dad, said that they had a conversation with Michael at the time and said, we can't adopt you, but we gotta take your conservativeship. So they're alleging that he knew. I'll also say that, and I don't know if any of you have been in this situation, if you ever had a kid stay at your house for a long period of time, that a lot of times you just say, like, hey, he's like my adopted son. There's also the, how many times have you said somebody's your uncle and they're not really your uncle? Yeah, anybody have an uncle who's not really their uncle? I have plenty of uncles that aren't my Uncle Mike was my dad's roommate in college. He's a wrestler at Ohio State. Mike Barnett lives in Arizona, listens to the show. He's not my uncle. But I've always called him my uncle. He was introduced to me as Uncle Mike when I was a little kid.
But it's not the uncle like in The Sopranos, the uncle.
No.
But I mean, I guess you would agree that the young man probably should be benefiting a little bit more
No
from
doubt.
what happened. Yeah.
No doubt. I mean,
that seems to be obvious,
It
right?
looks like a really, really bad deal that the Tuohys signed. And they all got a really bad deal out of it. But you'll also get people that'll go like, well, Michael Lewis made all this money out of it. He should just give it to him. Like, why? Out of the goodness of his heart? Sure, he should. But he's not legally obligated or even morally necessarily obligated to.
And Doug, there was a lot of talk yesterday, which I thought was like, talk about going down a road down the street.
Oh.
Sandra Bullock should return her Oscar.
You get to just, people go crazy about it. Listen, it's just let's, But this is the same thing that happened with the Favre thing, right? Where people are like, dude, Brett Favre on TV during Monday Night Football? No. Ask him about stealing welfare money. Take down the statue in Green Bay. Just have a little. I understand. I have no patience just like anybody else. I have had to really, really work on my level of patience. But everything we can do, we can just do. We just press the button. I mean, that's the whole thing with Twitter, right? We just sit there and stare at it for news to come out. Bam, like that. We used to have to wait for the morning paper. Now we want it right now. When I order something at Starbucks, I want it ready. I want to time it out so it's ready. I don't want it sitting there. Okay, I want to know if it says it's ready at 1:45. When I walk in at 1:46, that sucker better be hot, piping hot, and ready. Matter of fact, you guys ever get a nitro?
That's just a little too much for me, but
Nitro's awesome.
The nitro is it poured into your coffee or is it separate?
No, it's separate. It's like a cold brew, nitro cold brew, but they put nitrogen in it, so it's like foamy and fizzy a little bit.
Okay.
Right? But they won't make it until you get there because it's one of those you got to get it and kind of drink it quick, otherwise it settles and all the foam goes away from it. It's not very good. But it's annoying. Like you're in a hurry, you order a nitro, you get there, you're like, "Where's my nitro?" Like, "Oh, you're here. Now we'll make it for you," because you have no patience. We have no patience. We have the story. We get the allegations. They got to be true. And there may be some truth to it. I'm guessing they still have their conservatorship. It looks like there's a break in their relationship. He feels like it wasn't on the up and up. He's never wanted to talk about it. Anytime anybody's had Michael Oher on, he has completely not wanted to talk about it, the blind side at all. And now you're starting to see why. But there's also, it feels like a breakdown in communication that led us to this place.